Stacy Lynn Harp is coaching with heart. Thank you for listening to this audio presentation. To learn more about Stacy and her coaching services, visit stacylharp.com. That's STACYL harp.com.
Welcome everybody to this episode of Coaching with Heart. Today's title is Unmet Needs. And it's also the last of the series I've been doing here in looking at our hearts, whether they're critical or caring. And, I have to tell you that pretty much anything that we really talk about is going to fall under this umbrella. But for the sake of breaking things up, this will be kind of the last in this series for a while. And then what we're going to do starting tomorrow is we're going to begin looking at depression and how to deal with that. So make sure that you stay tuned. Tell a friend if you think that they can benefit from some of the stuff that we're talking about. Don't forget our main website is stacylharp.com. Okay, so today, let me ask you something. What do you think of when you hear these two words? Unmet needs. If you're like me, there are many things that come to your mind. From, emotional needs, to physical needs, to spiritual needs. We all have them. For me, one of the first things that came to my mind was wondering what it would have been like to have a mother and a father, both my original parents, to have been raised with them, because I'm a child of divorce. And so I will never have that experience, ever. It was a broken thing in my life. And so for you, it could be the same thing, or maybe it's you need money, or you need comfort, or you need a greater understanding of spiritual stuff. Who knows, Only you do. But our unmet needs impact everything that we do. People often thirst and try to fill things up in their lives when they are missing something. And so today what I want to do is I want to make a comment here. Often when we're being critical of somebody, it's easy to look at that person and to tear them down without seeing their unmet need. And I want to share a story with you about a woman that I met a number of years ago. Love this woman. I really do love this woman. She was somebody I met at a former church I attended, and she was probably considered by most people to be an unlovely woman. She dressed in old ratty clothes that she made herself. They were always dirty. They were always kind of smelly. She was smelly, actually. She was very low-key, kind of very quiet. She wouldn't talk much. It took a lot for her to open up. She was in her 50s. She walked to church in sneakers that had holes in them. I found out that she had never been married. And as I got to know her, I also found out that she took the bus to 3 different jobs every single day. And she had spent all this time on the bus every single day. And one day, my husband and I, we went to her house at Christmas time, and we wanted to bless her, so we got her a Christmas tree. And she let us into her house, and we gave her a little Christmas tree and had dinner and stuff like that. And as we got to know her over the years, I began to get to know her, and realized that this woman had a lot of unmet needs. And one of the things that she didn't have was a washer and a dryer. And so because she took the bus 3 times a day, both ways, going to and from all her different jobs, because she had no car, and because she lived in an apartment all by herself and made very little money, she wasn't able to get her laundry done all the time when it needed to be. And I don't know if you've ever lived in an apartment, but it can be a pain to do your laundry in an apartment complex because of all the different washers and dryers there. And so we began to help her out with that, and we found out that she made her clothes because she couldn't afford them to go to the store and buy clothes, but she made her clothes because she was good at doing that type of thing. But even those were dirty. And she shared a story with me one time that broke my heart. I'll never forget it because it was one of these things where you would never know unless they told you. And here was the story. She shared with me that she had gone to work one day and she knew that she smelled really bad. And that, she was sad and frustrated because she knew that she needed to get certain things in order to help her smell better. And what one of those things was women's feminine protection. She ended up being at her job one day, and while she was having her period, a coworker made some comment about her and to her about how bad she smelled. And as it turned out, my friend had been having her period and she was using the same feminine protection for a week because she couldn't afford to buy any. Now, I don't know about you, but this poor woman had an unmet need that was so easy to have met, but nobody would have known it. Nobody did know it because she was too embarrassed to tell people, and yet the stench and the odor from that unmet need was very apparent to everybody. And so, when we're being critical, sometimes it's because we don't know the facts. And in this person's case, the fact was she was a clean person for the most part, except she didn't have enough money to buy feminine protection. And as a result, she had to do the best she could with what she had. And the shame and the embarrassment from that particular need was so great to her that she couldn't ask for help. But instead, she risked being ridiculed and mocked because of how bad she smelled. Fortunately, she was able to open up to somebody, and they were able to get her what she needed, and that helped the situation. But can you imagine for every month or, for any length of time, having that problem and not being able to share it with somebody? This is America, after all. Right? Where we're supposed to love each other, a quote, Christian nation. Even in the church, though, she couldn't really tell people what her needs were, and that was one of them. Such a basic need, having feminine protection to be able to change during a woman's cycle. That's something most of us take for granted. And this woman, she didn't take it for granted because she had very little and she did what she could with it. I'll never forget that story because it's such an example of a woman who knew what her need was, but she was so ashamed to ask for help because she had been so judged and harshly criticized by other people. Instead of somebody taking the time to say, hey, you know what, I noticed there's kind of an odor here. Is there something maybe you need help with? And, it was a good thing because finally somebody did and she was able to get that help. But you know what? Our sin is that way, isn't it? So next time you see somebody who you're judging, consider my friend in her situation. It turned out she's one of the sweetest people I've ever met, and love her to pieces. And she ended up becoming a pretty good, disciple of Christ after people began to share his love with her. And you know what? This is how I ended our email. I basically said, imagine how Jesus saw us with all of our unmet needs. Our need to be forgiven, our need to be loved, and our need to have purpose. What did he do for us? And how did he provide for us in our state of unmet needs? He met us. He came to our rescue, and he saved us, and he gave us hope. He gave us help. He gave us healing, and he died while we were yet sinners. Christ died for us. So may we follow his example today.
Thank you for listening to this audio presentation. To discover more resources from Stacy Lynn Harp, clinically trained marriage and family therapist and biblical coach, visit stacyl.harp.com. That's STACYL harp.com. Coaching with Heart.